Polls show Europe's far-right parties are struggling to find cohesion ahead of the EU elections.
As the European elections loom, the main concerns for Europeans are the economy and security issues, as they expect more stability from the upcoming parliament.
Russia hit the city of Dnipro on Tuesday, a key front line between Russia and Ukrainian troops. Ukraine managed to shoot down 2 missiles, but debris injured 6 people, including a 1-month-old baby, and damaged homes. A school was also hit in another Russian strike. Down south, the Kremlin continued its shelling on Kherson. 16 settlements on the right bank of the region were under fire in the past 48 hours, and several houses were damaged following a strike on a residential neighborhood. Moscow's ground offensive in the north has opened a new front and put more pressure on Ukraine's forces in the south. The US and Germany recently authorized Kyiv to carry limited strikes on Russian territory, but it's still unclear how effective they will prove.
Slovenia's parliament formally recognizing an independent Palestinian state with a majority vote. 52 members voted for the recognition during Tuesday's extraordinary 90-seat parliament session. No one voted against it. The vote made Slovenia the latest European country to recognize Palestine after Spain, Ireland and Norway in May. The latest move is seen as part of a wider effort to coordinate pressure on Israel to end the conflict in Gaza.
A candidate of the far-right German AfD party was stabbed in Germany's southern city of Mannheim. Heinrich Koch, a candidate in the local elections, allegedly saw an individual tearing up campaign posters and tried to stop him. The 25-year-old suspect allegedly assaulted him with a cutter. The victim was not critically injured. The alleged attacker has been arrested and is said to have psychiatric disorders.
"47 million Italians are eligible to vote in the next European elections that will be held next Saturday and Sunday to choose 76 members of the European Parliament across 5 main constituencies. Alongside these, nearly half of Italy's municipalities will go to the ballot for local elections. With more at stake, this year's vote is crucial. It will both shape the future of Europe at one of the most critical times in the Union's history, and it will be the first political test for Italy's right-wing government. Voter turnout, which hit a record low of 54% in 2019, has long troubled EU elections in Italy, and a growing disaffection towards European politics has taken a toll. Besides regular voters, some analysts argue that the election campaign focuses too much on domestic issues, causing some to lose interest.
È un momento di trasformazioni, è un momento critico, succedono cose drammatiche, inaspettate, quindi ci tengo che l'Europa, nella quale io credo molto, sia in grado di trovare delle risposte. Quello che viene deciso impatta sulla mia vita e su quella di ciascuno di noi.
A chi voti? Non mi sento rappresentato in nessun modo. Poi può essere che colto da coscienza morale all'ultimo, giustamente uno deve andare a votare, alla fine poi ci vado. Però non lo so.
Diciamo che non mi sento rappresentato a nessuno dei candidati, per cui parlano, poi alla fine.
Among voters aged below 35 years old, the situation is much more polarized. Those who said they will go to the polls, they consider the EU elections as important as the general ones.
Tutte le politiche europee guardano non necessariamente solo al presente ma anche al futuro, quindi secondo me riguardano più noi giovani che non i cittadini attuali, perché sono delle politiche che sono fatte apposta per durare nel tempo. E quindi sì, sicuramente è importante votare. Il problema vero è che la politica forse parla più agli adulti che non ai giovani. E soprattutto un altro problema che riscontro, non c'è la benché minima chiarezza sul funzionamento delle istituzioni.
Latest polls suggest Italy's main opposition party could make some gains while confirming Meloni's Brothers of Italy as the leading political force. If confirmed, this could strengthen her power both nationally and in Europe, making her a kingmaker of right-wing parties in the EU. Giorgio Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
Europe's ultra-conservative parties are being forced to seek out more moderate political allies in an attempt to secure enough votes to influence future EU legislation. According to the Euronews super polls, while the Conservatives are expected to see significant gains in the upcoming elections, they are still too divided to produce a viable EU Commission leader.
If we think about Giorgia Meloni, for example, the Italian Prime Minister, we have to understand that when we look at the leadership in the European right, we have also to see to take in account that we're talking about leaders that in some cases are also head of government, so they have different interests.
According to the Euronews Polls Centre's simulations, if the Conservatives decide to go into coalition, their best option would be to join up with the Liberals of the Renew Party. This way, they could match up parliamentary seat distribution with the realpolitik of the EU government. Coalition between the Conservative groups would be difficult, as it would be too weighted towards the right. There are also many issues the two main far-right parties, the European Conservatives and Reformists, led by Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and the Identity and Democracy Party, led by France's Marine Le Pen, are not united on. At the moment, the only issue that can create some cohesion within the right is the struggle against immigration. But even then, solutions to the matter differ between the southern flank and the eastern and northern parts of the EU.
But the center of gravity will certainly move to the right. And this is something the EPP, which will then be the central player, will be able to use as a blackmail potential vis-à-vis the Liberals and the Social Democrats, if not the Greens. I don't believe that the EPP is serious about working with identity and a democracy. That would also be political suicide at the national level, but they will certainly use it.
According to the Euronews Polls Centre, Europe's mainstream political parties are likely to face the difficult task of creating a ruling parliament using votes from the fragmented radical right bloc.
Unraveling the thread of social networks and revealing the real from the fake. But above all, to detect the manipulation of information. That's the job of this analyst who works discreetly for the Domestic Intelligence Service.
Ce que nous cherchons à détecter, ce sont des anomalies, on peut les appeler, donc une augmentation soudaine du nombre de posts ou de retweets ou de likes sur un sujet bien particulier, ou l'apparition de nouveaux acteurs.
In April, European figures from the conservative right and far right met in Brussels. The Foreign Intelligence Service scrutinized the exchanges.
Toute la zone grise, qui représente la majorité de ce qu'on voit à l'écran, est relative à une discussion ou à des discussions liées à la conférence politique qui a eu lieu mi-avril ici à Bruxelles. Tandis que les acteurs qui sont dans les zones bleutées sont des acteurs qu'on monitore au quotidien pour la simple raison qu'ils sont issus de la mouvance pro-russe et il semble clair que le fait de s'immiscer dans une conversation politique qui est physiquement basée ici en Belgique a sans doute pour objectif de créer plus, d'amplifier le chaos existant ou la polarisation relative à cette conférence.
The risk of foreign attempts to manipulate public opinion are high during elections. In Poland, a special commission has already begun to investigate Russian and Belarusian influence in the country. Citizens go to the polls during the European elections with an expectation for change, for improvement. According to Boyd Wagner, chief analyst of the Euronews Polls Centre, data shows that the main concerns for Europeans are the economy and security issues. They are expecting more stability from the upcoming parliament.
Number one would be the economy, would be things like purchasing power and the inflation. I think secondly, the one that is very common across every country is migration. Remains to be an important issue.
The economy, migration and climate policies are some of the top concerns that people in Brussels have as the EU elections loom.
if you want to do anything about a climate, you have to pay. So economics is important.
Schon auch wichtig, dass wir es schaffen, als Europäische Union klimaneutral zu werden und da auch den Weg da hinzukommen, dass wir starten und da aber trotzdem das sozialverträglich ist. Also dass wir es schaffen, dass das eben nicht bedeutet, dass nur die Reichen sich das leisten können und die Armen immer ärmer werden.
Well, economic stability, all our economies are so interlinked in the globalist world, and we have local problems as well in Ireland. It continues to be a massive housing crisis, cost of living crisis, and I don't think politicians are taking seriously these issues, especially European Parliament politicians.
At the political level, the focus is on competitiveness, while for European citizens, it's about their daily lives, and for some, it's two sides of the same coin. On the other hand, the issues of defense also appears to be a key priority for Brussels.
If politicians worry about competitiveness, this is about the budgets of the states. And the budget of the states is then, of course, necessarily also translates into the money of the people. So there is, of course, a strong connection. Now, when it comes to defense, then we see that people also worry about that. But that very much depends on where they live.
Voter expectations vary across member states, but they all unite in the hope for better management of both present and the future.